the people that got to come home went for Africa, and they ended up being in the 57th Bomb Group. And that's all I can tell you, because I was there in China.
Most of the Raiders rotated home after that mission. A few, like 27 or 28, stayed in India and China. Some flew the Hump, not for very long. Dick is the only one who flew a complete tour of that. Most of the others came home for a short time before they were rotated out. Most of them went to North Africa and Europe. A number of them were shot down. Several were killed later in the war. Yes, sir.
She said hand up first. I'll go second.
What were your thoughts when they told you you had to lighten the planes and had no guns, and they were putting broomstick handles out for guns? And where did you finally come down?
It's in the book. Dick, they ask, the question is about removing most of the armament on the B-25s for the Doolittle Raid, using broomsticks for the tail guns, and then a second question is, can you say a few words about your bailout over China?
We did not have any armament except a 30 caliber in the nose and 250 calibers in the turret in the rear. To fool any fighter coming up behind us, the B-25 did not have a armament, but one of our crew members was smart enough to figure out, why don't we put 2 broomsticks painted black sticking out the rear of the airplane, and that's what we did. We didn't have any tail armament.
Where did you come down in China? And can you say something about how you landed? Let me see.
When we arrived over China, we had to go on instruments almost immediately because of the big warm front that was over China. Colonel Doolittle alerted us by saying gave about 15 minutes unless we something have a miracle, we're going to have to bail out. So when that time arrived, the navigator and the bombardier bailed out first, and then I followed them, and Colonel Doolittle was last. In bailing out, I was involved in mentally in being scared and wondering what was going to happen next. I jerked the ripcord so hard that in looking down, I gave myself a black eye. The chute opened properly, and we had bailed out at 9,000 feet. In a few seconds, I was wondering what was going to happen because the terrain was very rough. And all at once I felt something on my feet, and it turned out that I had drifted over a pine tree which left me hanging about 12 feet off of the ground. I chose not to try and climb down and so forth because the Navy photographs and so forth indicated that it was pretty rough territory. I elected to stay in the tree, and I made some kind of a little hammock up there with a parachute, and I know I didn't sleep, but I just stayed there all night. The next morning, I had the storm had passed, and the thought that I had about not climbing down was justified, because it was pretty much on the side of a mountain. It would have been kind of a disaster if I had started walking around.
Glad you didn't.
Yeah.
So the exact area was the Tian Mushan Mountains, okay, which are some of the steepest mountains. You've probably seen them. They go straight up and straight down, right? And he landed on a tree that's kind of growing out of the side of a cliff. So he was pleased. And then, of course, he met it. Oh, never mind. That's in the book. Let's not talk about that. Do we have another question for the Colonel? Okay.
Well, sure, my impression of World War II was hard things got done pretty quick, and possible took a little bit longer. So for you taking off an aircraft carrier, what was that experience like? And then what was Colonel Doolittle like outside of a uniform?
I'm going to start with the second one first. Dick, what was Jimmy Doolittle like outside of the command structure when he wasn't wearing a uniform and your boss?
Yeah. I can't say enough things, good things about Colonel Doolittle. He was, everybody knows that he was a great pilot. He was also a education oriented individual. He received the first aeronautical engineering degree in aviation from MIT. Personally, he was very friendly, very inspirational. He was just a charming guy, and we would have followed him anywhere.
Taking off from an aircraft carrier to a medium-weight bomber, that's pretty impressive.
Can you describe the takeoff from the Hornet in that B-25?
Yeah.
Your first carrier takeoff and your last.
Yeah, that's right. During our training at Eglin Field, we all after we first heard that we were going to be taking off of a carrier, we really didn't have too much confidence in that idea. But the Navy sent Lieutenant Henry Miller to Eglin Field, and he had never seen a B-25 before, but he knew he was a good instructor and knew how to educate the pilots on a carrier takeoff. It was in our training. It was soon evident that it could be done. And so at the training that we had, everybody made a good takeoff. One man even took off without his flap. And of course he had a sinking feeling at the end of the deck, but he was able to avoid getting in the water.
Some other questions? Anyone else want to have a question answered by Lieutenant Colonel Cole? This may be your last opportunity. Very good, thanks.
Hello? Oh, hi, Colonel Cole. Thank you so much for being here today. My grandfather flew B-25s in the Mediterranean with the 340th Bomb Group, and two of his commanding officers were alternate crew members. And I was curious if you remember Robert Hackney and Lewis Keller, and what do you think their experience was like being alternate crews that didn't actually get to fly the mission?
Dick, can you tell us a little bit about the alternate crews who went on the Hornet but didn't fly the mission? Can you say something about the alternate crews that did not fly but were on the Hornet?
Yeah. Robert Hackney and Keller were classmates of mine. And we had 24 crews on the carrier for the whole trip, in case we needed some extra ones. The rumor was, and I wasn't ever approached, but the rumor around the carrier was that some of the Navy pilots were offering $500 to take a seat. And that's all I can tell you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, but I just a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. This is a copy of something called the Congressional Gold Medal. Okay, it went to the Doolittle Tokyo Raiders and was awarded. Dick gave this medal, the original, to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, on April the 18th of this year. I'm going to have it on a table over here a little bit later. But there have only been 158 of these awarded during the entire history of the United States. George Washington was the first, but Dick is not a hero. However, some of you may have heard of a guy named Bull Halsey. Bull was the admiral who was in charge of the task force of which the Hornet was a part, that led that strike on Japan. And Bull Halsey said in his memoirs that the takeoff that day, they had been discovered. They had to take off about 250 miles sooner than they had anticipated. All 16 of those crews knew that they didn't have enough fuel. They also knew that they had been discovered and that the Japanese were going to be waiting for them when they got there. They still went. All 80 men, 16 crews. And Bull Halsey said in his memoir that he considered that the most courageous deed in military history. But Dick isn't a hero. That's going to do it. Thanks very much.